بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على حبيبنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وشفيعنا محمد بن عبد الله صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على خير البرية وأزكى البشرية وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته وسار على نهجه إلى يوم الدين، وارض اللهم عنا معهم اللهم آمين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا خالصا لوجهك صوابا لسنة نبيك. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Last time you spoke about the makharij, more specifically the general makharij, and we covered the first two of those general faculties of articulation. We spoke about the general faculties of articulation, and more specifically we went through al-jawf, and we said that al-jawf, essentially anything, any form of voweling, regardless of duration, comes from al-jawf. Essentially anything after the 28, outside the 28 letters in terms of sound, will come from al-jawf, or the oral cavity. We also said that the throat has 3 letters, 6 letters, afwan. We split the throat into furthest part away from the mouth, and then the middle part of the throat, and then the closest to the mouth. We said that the bottom part has hamza and ha, and then the middle part has ayn and ha, and finally the top part of the throat, the ghayn and the kha come from the همز فهاء ثم عين حاء مهملتان ثم غين خاء, as Al-Jamzuri rahmatullahi alayhi said. We said that we are working our way outwards, so to speak, starting from al-jawf, or the oral cavity, and working our way up until we get to this general area, to the mouth and the lips and outside and whatnot. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll be attempting to go through al-lisan and the tongue and the makharij that exit from there. Before we get into that, however, we must embark on a journey of definition, as if we don't define exactly what we're talking about, when a particular technical term comes up, it won't mean anything to anyone. It must be the case that when we say the back of the tongue with what meets it of the soft palate, we know exactly what we're talking about. It must be the case that when we say the top side, the top of the side of the tongue, or adna hafatul lisan, to use the Arabic terminology, we know exactly what we're talking about. What we're going to be defining is, number one, the lisan itself, and the different parts and faculties and tools within the lisan, the tongue itself, and the teeth, because obviously the tongue is not just by itself making the sound, but it's what it comes in contact with. The teeth, top palate, meaning the top of your mouth essentially, and so the tongue, your teeth, and the top of the mouth, inshallah ta'ala. I apologize in advance for my diagrams. They're going to be as simple and clear as possible, not going to be artistic at all, but I'm sure it would be able to find actual detailed diagrams online specifically if you request them from your teachers. If you have the book that we recommended in the very beginning, Ustadha Karima's book, then they have very technical diagrams that would be much superior to our own. على كل حال, as long as the message is clear, that would be the main aim, inshallah ta'ala. So first of all, al-lisan itself. Very, not similarly, but exactly the same as we categorized the throat. There is أدنى اللسان, وسط اللسان, and أقصى اللسان. Although the أدنى اللسان is slightly more detailed. In other words, there is أقصى اللسان, very similar to أقصى الحلق, is the furthest part of the tongue. Furthest part of the tongue. Obviously, always our reference point is the outside, meaning the sound when it comes out itself. Or essentially the mouth, this part of the mouth. So everything is in reference to that. So when we say furthest away from that or closest to that, we're actually talking about this general area. So the furthest part of the throat with respect to here is here, meaning the path of the voice itself or the path of the sound. The furthest part of the tongue with respect to here is obviously that which is closest to the throat itself. So this is أقصى اللسان or furthest part of tongue. Then we have وسط اللسان, or the middle of the tongue. And then this is where things get slightly different from al-halq. The next part to define is hafatul lisan. Hafa means side, literally in Arabic. Hafatul lisan is the side of the tongue. The side of the tongue. This includes both or either. So hafatul lisan is one side of the tongue, but does not necessarily refer to the right or the left. Hafatul lisan is a side of the tongue. Whether it's right to left, it's and either it depends on the context itself, or it doesn't matter. Either one. So hafatul lisan, we're gonna say the side of the tongue. This is when it gets even slightly more different from the throat. Hafatul lisan itself, the side of the tongue itself, is divided into two parts. Adna hafatul lisan and aqsa hafatul lisan. The furthest part of the tongue, of the side of the tongue, and the closest part of the side of the tongue. This will become clear, why that is, will become clear later on, inshallah. So we're going to say here, And then obviously the above would be أقل صاد حرف اللسان. So we have so far أقصى اللسان, the furthest part of the tongue, the middle of the tongue, وسط اللسان, and then we have حافة اللسان, the side of the tongue, and that side has the close part of the side and the far part of the side. And obviously this is also a side of the tongue and is included if appropriate. So I mean, it doesn't matter which side is chosen. طيب. We then have طرف اللسان, the tip of the tongue.
Yeah, is that counting, brother? Yeah. Okay. Just give me a I may not be available. Good luck, brother. Yeah.
So this is when things also get slightly confusing, because the tip of the tongue itself is not something which is unanimously referred to or unanimously agreed upon by the scholars. So some would actually refer to something as بطن الطرف, literally the tummy of the tip of the tongue, which is essentially this part where the arrow is, the middle of the tip, and رأس الطرف, which is the actual head of the tip. The actual tip of the tongue, meaning the end of it. If you stick your tongue out, the furthest part of it is رأس الطرف. So they differ between this part here and this part here. And to be honest with you, when you think about it, there is a point to that, as we're going to explain shortly, inshallah ta'ala. But this is the general schematic. We have أقصى اللسان, وسط اللسان, حافة اللسان, and طرف اللسان. We have the furthest part of the tongue, the middle of the tongue, the side of the tongue, and the tip of the tongue. Within the side and the tip, there are slight more subcategorization. The furthest part of the side and the closest part of the side, and the tip itself, some would say that the head of the tip must be separated or must be discussed separately from the belly of the tip. This is in summary the tongue and its categorizations according to the science of Tajweed. طيب, we move on inshallah ta'ala, and we'll do al-hanak, meaning the top of the mouth. We cover the top of the mouth inshallah. As we said, it's not just the tongue itself that's making all the sounds, it's the tongue and whatever it comes in contact with, whether from the top of the mouth or the teeth. So first of all, the top of the mouth. So all that is shaded is the teeth. So those are the teeth. If you imagine this is the teeth and the tongue would be somewhere here. This is the top of the mouth. It is divided into three main parts. Number one, al-hanak al-rikh, or the soft palate. The soft palate. Hopefully that's how you spell palate. And this will be in the back. Not sure whether you've checked the insides of your mouth before, but if you actually feel it, you'll find that the back of the top of your mouth is soft, has a softness to it, and the front is quite hard. It's solid. You can't push into it. Whether the back, you can comfortably push into it. So this back part, roughly speaking, will be al-hanak al-rikh, or the soft palate. Here would be al-hanak al-sulb, or the solid palate. It is also referred to as al-hanak al-azmi, literally the bony palate. But the solid palate or bony palate doesn't really matter as long as we agree on what we're referring to. Terminologies we won't really bother too much as long as we understand what we're talking about. Essentially, the soft palate and the solid or hard palate. Last section is here. The gums. The gums are where the roots of the teeth connect to the top of the mouth. The fleshy part where the teeth connect to the top of the mouth. Common sense, really. That's where the gums are, and those are the three main parts that we must keep in mind when discussing the top of the mouth. الحنك الرخو, the soft palate, الحنك الصلب والحنك العظمي, the solid palate or the bony palate or the hard palate, doesn't really matter, and the gums. So gums in Arabic is litha. So if you can imagine, these are the teeth. Those would be the gums where the teeth connect to the top of the mouth. There's the soft part or the soft palate, the soft part of the top of the mouth, and the solid part of the top of the mouth. الحنك الصلب. This is where it gets a bit rigid, if you like. And this is quite smooth. طيب, جميل. We move on to the teeth. Obviously, if you're looking straight on to a person and you're looking at the teeth, it's going to be curvature because teeth are curved, obviously. But we're going to draw two models, inshallah ta'ala. Or actually, one main model. I don't know if I'm going to be able to draw the second one. Just basically the front teeth, but laid out in front of you, as opposed to actually curved, because that takes some art, and I have poor drawing. Actually, I think what might be easier is just might do both, inshallah. Might do both. The other option would be that we do exactly the same model as before, where the teeth are like this, and we just specify what each one is. But that requires some finesse. على كل حال. And also, I apologize as I don't actually know the technical terms of each set of tooth in English, so I'm just going to be sticking to the Arabic, inshallah, and what the scholars have mentioned. So the first thing are the two upper teeth. Actually, before we get into that, a mature human being will have 32 teeth, 16 in the upper part of the mouth and 16 in the bottom part of the mouth. So whatever we mention from the top, we're just going to be discussing the top for the sake of convenience. You can assume exactly the same for the bottom part of the mouth. So the top teeth are exactly the same as the bottom teeth in terms of terminology. We're just going to be discussing the top for the sake of convenience. So the top two teeth in the middle, I don't know if they're referred to as the cutters or something, but in Arabic they are called الثنايا. الثنايا. Those, the front two teeth, the Bugs Bunny teeth, the two in the front, the two clearest ones. The buck-toothed ones when they're large. Those front two teeth are referred to as الثنايا. Outside them, you have الرباعية. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. Often there's a live stream at the moment.
Do you have any number that they're calling back?
No, you can check here, inshallah. Yeah, you can check here. Or you can ask downstairs, inshallah.
Nobody is there now.
خير إن شاء الله. لا بأس. So the second two teeth outside الثنايا are referred to as الرباعية. الرباعية. So those just, we're going to keep working our way outwards until we get to the molar teeth and define all that needs defining, inshallah. Define. After that, apologies for the exaggerated vampire teeth, but essentially those are the canines. In Arabic, they're referred to as al-anyab. Al-anyab. They are the canines, the sharp tooth, the sharp teeth rather, just outside the four top ones or the four bottom ones. You get the ones that would be exaggerated in carnivorous animals, the ones that are very sharp and very large in lions, for example, or tigers and whatnot. Everything after Anyab. So obviously you're gonna mention 16 at the top, right? And so far we mentioned 6. So we have 10 left. So the 5 on this side and the 5 on this side, and likewise at the bottom, will be molars, molar teeth. Everything behind the canines, so everything behind al-anyab, are adras in Arabic. The plural of dirs, or molar tooth. But the Arabs also had different categorizations of the molar teeth, so we're going to mention that as well. And inshallah, it may come in useful when describing the articulation points. So the first molar teeth behind the canines are referred to as al-dawahik, the plural of dahik. And you can guess where the name comes from. Dahik in Arabic means laughter. So al-dawahik are the molar teeth that would show when you're smiling or laughing. Al-dawahik. So that's where they get the name from. Behind those, you get 3 of the same kind. 3 of the same kind. They are at-tawahin. At-tawahin. At-tawahin are so named due to the fact that they are the ones used to do tahn. Tahn means grinding. So these are the molars that you would use to grind your food. At-tawahin. Finally, the last of the molars is النواجذ. النواجذ. النواجذ are the furthermost molar teeth that an adult human being would have. They're in fact referred to by the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith when metaphorically speaking about biting down on faith, essentially. عضوا عليها بالنواجذ أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. That bite on it with النواجذ, meaning the back molar teeth, meaning really high, hold on to it. You're going to really need to hold on to it. Referring to the ends of times and the fitan that will occur. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. طيب. That is everything to do with the teeth. We have الثنايا, الرباعية, الأنياب, الضواحك, 3 of الطواحن, and then النواجذ. One final thing to mention, everything on the top, you add the word al-ulya after it. Everything at the bottom, you add the word as-sufla after it. Al-ulya means the upper, as-sufla means the lower. So let me write that down. upper and lower. For example, if somebody said الثنايا العليا would be the upper ثنايا. If somebody says النواجذ السفلى, referring to the back molars, the furthermost back molars, but at the bottom. If somebody says الضواحك العليا, they're referring to the upper ضواحك, and so on and so forth. الأنياب السفلى, رباعية العليا, etc. etc. That is everything at the moment that we will need to describe the letters that come from the tongue. Inshallah. طيب. What we're going to mention today, inshallah ta'ala, without detail unfortunately, would be number one, the letters that are pronounced by the tongue and how they are grouped. There are 18 letters from the Arabic alphabet that are pronounced from the tongue. 18 out of the 28 that we mentioned at the very beginning are pronounced from the tongue. We said so far we have 3 vowels and 3 mudud that are pronounced from al-jawf, fatha, dhamma, kasra, and the elongation, so alif, ya maddiya, waw maddiya. Those 3 come from al-jawf, and then 6 letters from the throat, from al-halq, همز فهاء ثم عين حاء مهملتان ثم غين خاء. 6 letters. So from the 28 letters that we started with from the very beginning, we so far covered 6 that come from the throat. 18 coming up will be from the tongue. I mean, that's why I guess many of the scholars warn of the tongue, and that it is one of the 2 major human tools that can drag them into the hellfire. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. It is also how a language is referred to in Arabic, similar to English. If you say al-lisan, lisan al-Arab, the language of the Arabs, the tongue of the Arabs. And it makes sense in English as well, the tongue of such and such people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala many times refers to the tongue as the language, because of how many letters or how it predominates when speaking, when pronouncing in speech. It is referred to as lisan Arabi mubin, bilisan Arabi mubin. Lisan Arabi, a clear Arab tongue. That's the literal translation. Obviously, a clear Arabic language or speech is what would be the effective translation. على كل حال, we have 18 letters from the Arabic alphabet that are pronounced from the tongue. Those 18 come under 10 major subcategories or subpoints of articulation. If we want to be really accurate, or as some scholars have said, every single letter comes from a unique articulation point. There are no 2 letters that come from exactly the same articulation point. Perhaps this is the case. Perhaps also, as we may find out ourselves, there is slight leniency when it comes to particular articulation points. Like, as we're going to mention, inshallah ta'ala, there are about 9 letters that are attributed to the tip of the tongue. 9 letters. So half of the 18 attributed just to the tip. The differences, if they exist, are very fine. If they don't exist, meaning if two letters have exactly the same articulation point, for argument's sake, then one may ask, I mean, how is the one different from the other then? How can you actually say that this letter is X and this letter is Y? And just as a random example, how can you say that this is a dal and this is a ta if they both come from exactly the same articulation point? The answer is simple, and that it comes in characteristics in the sifat. Even if, for argument's sake, for those who say that more than one letter can come from one articulation point, even if that is the case, then what differs, what makes a letter unique, is not just its articulation point, as we mentioned all this time ago in the introduction. It is also its characteristics. Like a ta is one letter of hams, and the dal is not one letter of hams. The dal has qalqala, the ta does not have qalqala. So da with qalqala without hams, ta with hams without qalqala, you get the difference in sound, even if the articulation point is the same. طيب, actually, I'm not sure that we should even get into that at the moment, because it will take a while. And we'll be drawing diagrams and whatnot. You know what? We'll mention it just by speech, and get into it properly next time, inshallah. So, number one is the qaf. Number two is the kaf, or the makhraj of the qaf, the makhraj of the kaf, the makhraj of wasat al-lisan, which is jim, sheen, and ya. Number four is the makhraj of hafat al-lisan, specifically the furthest part of the side of the tongue, as we mentioned earlier, the dad, and then you have the top part of the side of the tongue, where the lam comes from. We're going to explain all this, obviously, inshallah ta'ala. Then the noon, then the ra, and then you get three in one in the last three articulation points. You get the ta, ta, dal from one articulation point. You get the zal, tha, and la from another articulation point, and the final articulation point be sin, sad, and zay. So this comes out as 18, hopefully 18 articulation points, often 18 letters in 10 different categories of articulation. We'll get into that properly next time, inshallah ta'ala. It is a long topic and it is a detailed one as well. So bear with us, inshallah ta'ala. And if there are any questions, then you can address them to us, inshallah ta'ala, or to your respective teachers. Until next time, والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين.